I'm satisfied with your right one.
All the armed robberies you've asked me about, I've admitted them. I know nothing about that killing.
I've got naught to do with any murders.
I think you did it.
I didn't do it, man. I don't care. I didn't do it.
I think he dropped on you that morning, and to make sure you didn't get caught, you shot him.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I don't kill coppers. I wasn't there, man. I was in bed.
You executed that man, Richard.
I didn't do it.
Is the person you saw on the 31st of October 1984 in Kirgate on this parade?
No.
OK.
They just weren't the two people involved. The letdown is unbelievable. You think they've got them, you know, and it wasn't, you know, it just died. You can see people looking at you and thinking, well, you know, is he right? Are you sure there's not something he's missed? You know, because of the trauma of the shooting and, of course, the operation and everything afterwards, is there something that it's changed. The image that I got of the gunman is entirely different to the fellow that committed the crime. And I must admit that you do start to doubt yourself, but it's more because of other people's, you know, looks and things like that you start to doubt yourself.
The Kay twins, between them, were sentenced to 25 years for 8 armed robberies, and the inquiry helped to jail 10 others for violent crimes. But there was no one thing that could link the brothers to the murder.
Well, there were times when we were low, but the experience of being in the police service 34 years tells me that one night you're low and then the next day you have a breakthrough. And we always lived that one day we would get the breakthrough.
And one day, the breakthrough came. The analytical team had been linking a series of unsolved jewellery robberies and post office raids. Each of the attacks was armed and violent. At the same time, an informant called North Yorkshire Police to say they should look into the activities of an Irishman, a known criminal, Anthony Eamon Kelly. He was a prospect for the robberies, but he also bore a strong resemblance to the artist's impression of the killer of Sergeant Speed.
Kelly was a good suspect because he was a man of violence. He'd been involved in firearms offences. He was the right build. He wore the right type of clothing, and he'd lived in the area for some considerable time, and he frequently visited warehouses in the market area of Leeds round about the time that John was murdered.
But Anthony Kelly was in Dublin. Over the following 4 months, West Yorkshire Police, with the help of the Irish Gardaí, observed Mr. Kelly and his associates, finding out about their past. John Thorpe, the wounded officer, was then flown out and was taken to see Kelly for himself at work on his street stall.
Out of all the people that I had seen prior to that time, Kelly was the one that was the closest. He was certainly the closest in build, age-wise. He looked very much like the gunman.
Anthony Kelly was known to have been in England at the time of the murder. What's more, he visited North Yorkshire frequently to see this man, a wealthy businessman, Gerald Stone. Stone was unknown to the detectives, so they decided to find out more about him. They mounted observations on his home in Fountains Abbey, a famous beauty spot.
Stand by, stand by. Got the target in sight. He's on foot. He's approaching the door now. He's into the cafe.
Gerald Stone was a very intelligent man. He had many criminal contacts in the Irish Republic, but he wasn't very well known at all in England. I was quite surprised when I went to Dublin and made inquiries, and a large number of the criminal fraternity in Dublin were aware of Stone and what he was doing. A very active criminal, I believe, over perhaps 15 years.
Yes. Morning, Mr. Gerald Stone.
Yes.
I'm Detective Chief Inspector Grubb, and this is Detective Inspector Barry Jewett. I'm arresting you in connection with armed robberies in West and North Yorkshire during the past 8 years. I'd like you to come with me now, please.
What are you talking about?
What?
Robberies?
Mr. Stone, for the last 8 years, you've been bringing over people from Dublin to commit armed robberies on jewellery
They're
shops.
friends of mine. What do you mean, jewellery?
Yes, they're friends of yours, Mr. Stone. Friends of yours in crime. That's what they're friends in.
Crime? Me? What do I need it for? I've got a business.
You've made a lot of money out of crime, Mr. Stone, and you've used these Irishmen to commit all these offences.
Oh, I don't know where you get it from.
Most of the Irish criminals are very easy to talk to. They don't tell you a lot, but they're very easily and very polite. People like Gerald Stone, very polite, a very nice man to talk to at stages, but obviously they're lying a lot of times, and you just got to be persistent.
In Gerald Stone's case, that persistence paid off. He began to make confessions. He had set up armed robberies. He's since been sentenced to 8 years in jail. Among his possessions was a bank bag. It seemed like one that had been stolen in the Asda supermarket raid.
Yes, that's my writing on it.
So Stone was linked to Asda. Kelly was linked to Stone. And the gun used in the Asda raid could well have been the gun used in the murder.
What we had to do was get Kelly out of Ireland, and we first of all tried extradition proceedings for a jewellery robbery in the city of Bradford. I think the value was £215,000 worth, and we tried to extradite Kelly to this country. That went before the Irish court and failed for technical legal reasons. And thereafter, Kelly was arrested for the Guinness kidnapping affair.
It was around midnight that police tracked Mrs. Guinness and 3 members of the gang who abducted her to a smart Dublin townhouse. Almost immediately, one of the gang emerged from the building, shots were fired, and he was arrested.
Detectives from West Yorkshire are expected to fly to Dublin to question some of the men arrested after the kidnapping. They want to see 2 of them in connection with the shooting of Police Sergeant John Speed in Leeds 18 months ago.
We had a difficulty here. We were trying to extradite Kelly from Ireland for an armed robbery offence. That had special problems for us because given that he was really a very hot suspect for our murder, we had something of a dilemma, because you can only proceed with those matters for which you extradite. And interviews were difficult in Ireland. We were not able to see Kelly and carry out the requisite enquiries which would have put him in or out of the investigation.
Anthony Kelly is now serving a 14-year term in Limerick jail for his part in the Guinness kidnapping. West Yorkshire Police have 6 outstanding warrants for his extradition. For almost 2 years, Kelly remained the prime suspect in the Speed inquiry. There were many other suspects too, of course, and many other lines of investigation. One began when, 10 months after the murder, the Leeds incident room took a call from Cleveland.
Well, what it is, we've had an incident occur this afternoon down at the Asda store car park in Stockton, where an off-duty policeman tackled a man who was armed with a handgun.
Where the hell have you been?
There's a man over there who's got a gun sticking out of his pocket.
It was about 4:30 p.m.
Police officer.
Hands off! Go on! The man made his escape on a motorcycle and was last seen heading towards the A19 southbound.
12 days later, an armed robbery took place at this post office when a gunman armed with a shotgun stole £2,000. But the main factor was he escaped on a black Suzuki motorcycle, the motorcycle that we were interested in. We found the motorcycle here in Leeds in this water. We got it out of the dam here. We broke it down, found a great many refinements had been put on the cycle. As a result of that, we set up a team from the incident room to visit all motorcycle dealers in the north of England to try and find where these refinements had been purchased. That trail led to Redcar. where we eventually found a motorcycle dealer who sold that part. Unfortunately, he couldn't put us onto the man who purchased it. That increased the liaison between West Yorkshire and the Cleveland police, and this man